All right, Miss Emma, you're here with me, Dr. D Social Network. Thanks for showing up today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I am excited to talk to you about, I think, something that's a little different. And I promised myself this year, all of my episodes, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I'm in the fitness business, but I feel like health in general is much more than just fitness. It's so much, it's holistic. And that includes understanding your intuition, I believe, and all those things that may seem mysterious to a lot of people for that. So I wanted to jump in about your background and related to being an intuitive and medium, how we got to this point.
Well, that's a great place to start, and a story I love to tell. Because I wasn't a kid saying, "Oh, when I grow up, I want to be an intuitive." I didn't know that this was a career option, and I wasn't taught to trust my intuition. That isn't a thing that a lot of us are taught how to trust and connect with our inner world. So, yeah, I love telling this story because there's so many people out there who have really strong intuition, but they haven't learned like the mechanisms and the foundational information about intuition to like support them in their life and to support them in trusting themselves. So my story really starts when I was 18. I got sick with chronic illness, autoimmune disease, and chronic pain. Um, and I wasn't getting support and answers from the Western medical system. They gave me a diagnosis, but they couldn't do much more than that. Right. So I had to turn to myself to find healing and to take care of myself and to manage the pain and discomfort that I was feeling on a daily basis. So that brought me to learning about meditation, mindfulness, and also energy, like working with energy healing and Reiki. So as I learned about this, as I learned about meditation and developed a relationship with myself, I began to learn about who I am and my body, my senses, my pleasure, my desire in life, like the things I didn't like and the things I did like I started to like really connect with all of those things just from that piece of connecting in with my body. And coming from a fitness, background and working with the body, the first thing I teach in my intuition course is how to connect with your body and work with your body because our body is incredibly intelligent. And when we're present in our body, intuition naturally flows into our awareness. So, intuition is a natural part of being human. And it's something that is present with us all day long when we are present with ourselves. All intuition is energetic information. It's information that comes through the non-physical. So an example I like to give of intuition is like you walk into a room and you pick up on a vibe. You don't see that people were fighting, but you can feel like there's tension here, right? You might not see it from verbal cues, but you can feel it, right? That's intuition. That's energetic information that you're receiving. And so what I teach people to do is how to trust that, how to value that, and how to learn about how it comes through and how it works for you so that you can use it to support you to live, the best life possible.
So what's interesting, I think, is I feel like more people are open minded to thinking about intuition or energy work, or even, hey, I want to talk to a medium. What is the shift that maybe you've seen? Maybe you haven't noticed it. I don't know. I'm just going from my experience, but have you seen this change in people? And two, why has this been maybe kind of fringe for a lot of people in the past, but it's not so much now.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So we're actually taught um, to not just to not trust ourselves, but to distrust ourselves, like to question and doubt ourselves. And we can look at this like culturally, like, on a big scale, but also like within families, like that's a pretty common theme that goes through families is there's this like authoritarian sort of top down system that happens where, you know, no, you're not upset. The parent will say, you're not upset, you're fine, right? We know we're not fine. So in that interaction that is super common, we are taught to distrust ourselves. We're taught to doubt ourselves. So this is why accessing intuition, it is a natural thing, but we are pulled away from it through these harmful interactions on a cultural level and in a relational level. Um, we're pulled away from that connection because we have to like trusting ourselves. It's like trust in any relationship. It's like a living thing, right? And so it takes time and care and presence to build that and to honor that. And so if we're taught to not do that, then we have this distrust, this resistance within ourselves that we have to work through in order to feel that clarity and begin to have that like beneficial, supportive relationship with ourselves. But most of us we're taught to do the opposite. So that's why I believe it's so it used to be so fringe. And now it's coming forward and people are starting to like open up and get more curious about connecting with their intuition, meditating, expanding their consciousness, like doing all of these different experiences that used to be kind of woo woo and crazy.
Yeah.
Um, because, well, science is coming out about it, right? And how that it can actually, you know, help us and heal us. And these, you know, many of these um, modalities that people are using now to heal have been used for thousands of years by healers. But science is coming out, and when science starts coming out, people start to pay a little more attention because people tend to be very rational and analytical in our society right now. So
So it sounds like what you're telling me is that since more science has been, research and study has been conducted in this area, that people feel more comfortable to actually be exposed to this.
yeah, I think so, and I think also hearing stories about people connecting with other, intuitives. And there's a lot of intuitives and mediums who are really famous right now and that get a lot of, that have Netflix specials and things like that. And people can see those and experience them sort of from the outside and learn, okay, this isn't as crazy as I thought it was. Because people can have an idea that it's this crazy out there experience, that there's like this magic or trickery involved when really it's connecting to the source of life. And it's really simple and it can be really, really simple and clear the messages that come through.
Yeah. I think also some of the tension or apprehension may be that um, there's a lot of potential for people, maybe like bad actors, to create scams around intuitive
Totally.
practices. So maybe
Hmm.
you could highlight what are some ways that people could have information to know whether or not this is something that's legitimate or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought that up because that's something I'm concerned with a lot too, because I really care about my clients and um, I makes me sad to think that they could, work with someone who doesn't have their best intentions, the best intentions for them. So I think one of the main things that people can do if they're wanting to work with an intuitive or medium is to get a referral from someone that they know who's used one. That's a really great way to sort of have an in and have that like trust or that validation that this person, was able to you know, support this their friend or family member in this time, and then they could support them. So getting a referral from someone is a great way to do that. Um, and another thing I like to really encourage people is you want to find someone that makes you feel good, that supports you in feeling good. So if you ever work with someone or hear about someone that is sharing fear or um, trying to like tell someone to do something or control them, or say like you have to do this, or this is why this happened, or this is your exact future, um,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
that's a red flag.
This is your
That's
exact future. Yeah.
that's a red flag, because the way I work and the ethics that I hold in my work is that the strongest force is free will. So when I'm working with a client, I'm working with their consent being there, and I'm working on honoring their free will. So what I'm going to present for them is choices. I'm going to present for them options. Um, and I'm going to share with them insights that I see that they can take or leave, right? So I'm approaching it in that way, and that's the way I think that is most supportive for people, um, to support them in thriving, because we all want to have choice, right?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that I just why I jumped in the comment about like this is your future. I think that's what a lot of people sense. It's like,
Uh-huh.
well, tell me what it's gonna be like. Like,
Yeah.
like give me the answers. That's but also I think that has been socialized into us through whatever medium you would
Yeah.
talk through TV,
Yeah.
movies,
Yeah,
shows.
yeah. You see the crystal ball and
Yes.
saying like who you're gonna marry and all
Yeah.
that. That's fun. That's for entertainment. That's like an entertainment form. And perhaps there are some, intuitives and psychics out there who specialize in that kind of thing. I am not one of those people.
Okay.
Um, and I actually believe that we don't have one clear future because we have choice. So we're making choices every day that are creating the reality that we're living in now. Um, so yeah, people come to me and they're like, tell me what's going to happen. Tell me, the amazing things. And I'm like, oh, that's not what I do. I'm going to tell you where you need to do the work.
Yeah.
That's what I bring forward for people is I can say, this is where you need to do the work to free things up so you can experience this thing you want to experience.
I think
It's
people
not
want the
a
certain
it's not a golden ticket.
yeah, they want the certainty though. People want the certainty to tell me my future so I know what's gonna happen because it's
Mhm.
scary to not know what's gonna happen. And you know,
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. And that totally makes sense too. And that's one of the things that can be supportive about working with someone if you are on like a healing spiritual journey, if you're trying to expand your consciousness, it's helpful to work with someone who can see you in that and be with you in that and hold space for that expansion for you, because the like as things open up, your intuitive abilities grow. Like as your consciousness expands, your intuitive abilities expand. And to work with someone who understands that and can validate that, that's where the certainty comes in. It's through self trust, right? And
yeah.
believing yourself. Like that's where that certainty comes in, that true certainty, that true like security. It doesn't come through like, I know this is going to happen. It comes through, I trust me. I believe in me. I got me. I got my back.
I actually compare this to in my line of work. When I start working with someone, I'm training them. It's like I talked about, this is not creating body confidence and like the aesthetic of yourself, but this is the confidence in your body to be able bodied to do
Yeah.
things. And like I was an athlete growing up in college and stuff, and I was thinking something's off with my body. I know it immediately because I know
Mhm,
my body. I trust my body,
mhm,
and
mhm.
I go, okay, there's something off with me. And sometimes I think those senses are deadened to people if they're not used to being physical regularly. And I feel like this is kind of a similar kind of parallel idea. It's like, well, if you're not used to being paying attention to your intuition or these feelings you have, then it's almost like you haven't put in the repetitions to know your intuition very well.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I love that example because when we're present in our body, when we are present and aware with what's happening in our body, intuition naturally flows into our awareness. Whether we notice it as intuition or not, right? When we're present with our body, we're like, I need to take a nap. And it comes through those really simple ways. And this is another sort of like myth about intuition is that you connect with intuition and then you're having these like crazy profound visions about, out there stuff. No, it can be as simple as like what you should eat for dinner or how you should spend your Sunday or what book you want to read next, right? And when we're connected with our intuition, on those topics, we can free up a lot of mental space where we're not having to like mentally make decisions about things. We can trust ourselves and trust that flow and have those decisions be made for us. Um, so, so working with being present with your body is so essential because when we're with our body, our intuition is naturally there. Also, from the studies that I've done and research that I've done working with groups and teaching groups, the most common way that people's intuition communicates to them is through felt sense. So it's not through seeing visions, which people often think that's how it happens. The most common way that it comes through is felt sensations. So this is like heaviness in the body, lightness in the body, tingling, like feeling drawn towards something, like magnetized towards something, like wanting to take a step forward, wanting to take a step back, not wanting to sit next to somebody, wanting to sit next to another person, this kind of like physical um, information that we're getting, this physical draw, is the most common way that people receive intuitive information.
Hmm,
So, yeah.
interesting. It makes me think of like, I have a lot of questions now thinking about this. Like, someone's like how you feel about the aura of someone, uh,
Mm,
like how they make you feel. Like, I remember I hired this one guy in this gym I ran for a long time. And I hired him mainly because I liked the way he made me feel during the interview. Like, I was like, "This is a good person." Like, there's something about this gentleness, the kindness. He didn't even say a lot. It was just
mhm,
I hired Ernie because of the feeling I had
mhm,
about I trusted that feeling. He
mhm.
was great for us for a good solid decade when I was there. It was amazing. And
Wow.
I wonder, like, how do you understand and like I intuitively start trusting that feeling, but some people don't trust those feelings in themselves.
Mhm.
Or what about if you don't know that you are like that to other people, like how you project yourself to other people?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, so the second question, like, I don't think that matters.
Okay.
I don't think it matters, because people who are really empathetic, who are open to that, we can hyperfixate on how we are presenting to other people. And that doesn't matter. We just need to focus on us and how things feel and how other people pick up on that. It's going to depend on them, right?
Mm,
It's not necessarily even us. So for you, he was a right fit, but for another person, maybe not,
maybe
you
off.
know?
Yeah.
Right, right. Maybe at a bad gym with, mean
Right.
people, they would not be that connection.
But what about
So,
this though? But what if someone is like equally like comes off poorly to a lot of people? Like, what
mm,
about that? Like, goes, oh man, like, oh, for instance, like we used to have a question like, what's the biggest misperception people have about you, like that you provide to people? And like sometimes people will say, everybody thinks I'm a jerk, but I'm not. I'm like, there's a
mm,
weird disconnect there. What is it about that person's like their presence, that a
Mhm.
lot of people have this intuitive feeling about them.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I think there can be a lot of things going on there. I mean, the first would be the person that, presenting in a certain way may have some exploration to do on that. Um, on like how it feels to be in social interactions, and are there things about it that make them uncomfortable,
Yeah,
probably for very good reason, and how they can work on, experiencing those social situations with a little bit more calm and openness.
yeah,
But also, like, there's always going to be people are going to be picking up on things, like, and interpreting them based on where they're at.
yeah,
So when intuition comes in, intuition, it isn't just necessarily a gut feeling. And I want to make this clarification here because there's a difference. So a gut feeling, what that is usually is a protective response. Intuition is not never a protective response. It's always like a supportive, random sort of burst of information. So in this case, with this person interacting and getting sort of misunderstood, both the person misunderstanding them and the person themselves, there's a gut feeling protective response happening there. So this is mental. Um, and so it's like, if you get punched by a guy in a red shirt and it's really terrible, and then you get interviewed by a guy in a red shirt, you're gonna have a bad feeling about this guy, right?
yeah,
If you haven't done the work on that, right? So that's the gut feeling. That's like this doesn't feel good because this guy's got a red shirt, and you might not even be conscious. You might not even
yeah,
remember getting punched, but you have that um, implicit memory that's stuck around that's creating that gut feeling. So a lot of times gut feelings are protective responses to things. Intuition, on the other hand, isn't happening in the mind, and it's not protective. So there's never any um, fear or sense of urgency, or like, I have to do this. Like if you were sitting next to someone and you were like, I have to hire this person, I can't not hire this person, I have to get this job, right? That's ego and that's the mind. So that's not accurate intuition. Is this making sense?
yeah. It is a little bit. I think maybe some more examples, like so,
More examples. Okay.
like I think because examples always give people guidance. I feel like, oh, what am I seeing actually, or what am I feeling? So, like, I immediately thought, okay, my next thing was gonna be like, well, let's do a different example because I want to. I'm interested, like, what would be an intuitive example that is not fear or
Mm.
protective, and what is a gut feeling?
Okay. Well, so my example I'll give for the intuitive example, I'm going to give the example of how my intuitive gifts opened up because it's a great story. And it really exemplifies this concept I'm trying to get across. So I'd been working on meditation and practicing meditation. And in 2017, I was meditating when I I had this information come into my awareness as I was meditating. And the kind of meditation I was doing, it's like non-attachment. So you sort of see your thoughts as clouds and let them pass. And so I had this information come in. At first I thought it was a thought because I'd only ever known thoughts being in my mind. Um, but it was so beautiful. And it was like I saw it like a pink cloud because I'm very visual. So in my sessions, I'm seeing things, seeing colors and things. And it was a pink cloud, and the information that came through was that someone in my family was going to die
Mhm.
and that everything was gonna be okay. I thought this was a thought. I thought this was my imagination, but I wrote it down in my journal, and a week later, my dad passed away of a heart attack. So this was the beginning of me realizing that there is some something real here. There's something beyond the physical, something beyond what we see, hear, taste, touch, know on the physical that is here for me to explore. So there was no when I received that information, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't sad. I wasn't upset. I wasn't panicked, right? The information came um through a it was loving and neutral. That was the energy behind it. So, intuitive information, it's loving and neutral. Yeah.
And the gut feeling, what's a good like, so no besides the one we just did?
Yeah, so a gut feeling, let me see. Yeah, an example of a gut feeling reaction is like, there's like, uh, your boss asks you to, wants to promote you, and you feel a little uncomfortable about that, and you feel a little like, I don't know, do I deserve it? I'm comfortable in my job, right? So you're having these like second thoughts or like doubts. That's like a protective response. That's not accurate intuitive information. And you can tell that it's not accurate information because there's fear there, right?
Mhm.
So when you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I could do this job he wants me to do. I don't know if I'm capable, right? There's fear there. So that's
Okay.
the difference with the gut feeling. And gut feelings are good too because they're giving you information. They're telling you there's a part of me that's afraid right now, and we don't want to ignore that. Mm-mm. We want to take care of that part and say, "Honey, it's okay."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, there's a lot going on. Um, so, the term or the phrase, "Trust your gut,"
Hmm.
but, yeah, based off what you're saying is, like, how much of it do you trust if it's
Mm.
fear-based?
Hmm. Well, none of it.
Okay. Like, alright, I'm
None of it.
going in
You
none of
no, but there's a difference between believing it and, like, hearing it, you know?
okay.
So, like, um, if a kid came up to you and said, um, I don't know, like, I'm afraid that there's a monster in my closet, right?
Yeah,
I'm really afraid there's a monster in my closet. You can support that kid without believing what that kid is saying.
sure.
So you can say, I believe, well, not I believe you, but I get it. You're
Yeah,
afraid. You're scared. I'm here for you. What do you need? You want a nightlight? You want me to cuddle you? You can take
right.
care of that without um, being like, oh shit, is there a monster in the
Yeah,
closet?
yeah,
And so that's how we can approach those gut feelings or those sort of protective reactions that we can have to challenges in our life.
right. So, like, in the job one, I wanna go back to that because I think it's pretty relatable for the audience here, I would say,
Mhm,
probably more, is if you start having those feeling this gut feeling about this job, maybe I'm not, you have imposter syndrome, you're worthy of this, actually, it's
mhm.
really comfortable, and how do you process that? Because there's a fear there, but then you're saying, "Well, but don't trust it, you don't trust it," like, it seems hard, actually. Like, how
Uh-huh.
do you work through that?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So so your boss just said, I'm gonna give you this promotion. You want this promotion. And then all of a sudden these thoughts start coming up. Am I worthy for it? Am I good enough? I don't know. I feel a little uncomfortable about this, right? I've never done that job before. So we don't want to start believing those thoughts because when we believe them, we're like validating them and we're reinforcing like you're not good enough. Like and that's when we would say I can't take the job.
Yeah,
Once we if we started believing them, right? That's when we would
right.
say I can't do it. I'm comfortable where I am, which is fine too. I don't want to
Of
say that
course.
we always have to be pushing forward
No,
and,
for
pushing
sure.
ourselves. But it's important to notice that we have a choice and we have control there about what narrative we honor. So in this situation, there's feelings that are coming up. There's emotions that are coming up about this potential. That's what we want to take care of, the feelings part, and not before we address the actions that happen,
Mhm.
but the choices that we make.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
Yes. So we go into the feeling and we can notice, like, maybe my parents never had a job that was like this before. I never saw anyone in my family do this before. It makes me feel a little nervous, like I don't know what's going to happen. I'm feeling a little scared about this. And we can go into the body and process those feelings by validating them within ourselves. So saying, I feel scared. That's okay. I'm noticing that I'm feeling scared right now. I'm noticing that this feels uncomfortable. And how does the uncomfortable feel? It feels like I can't breathe, you know? And if we're present with that and we work in that way through validating, noticing and validating the feelings that come up, then we're processing the feelings.
Yeah.
And maybe a day later, we'll feel a lot more clear. And we'll be like, you know what? I know I'm going to kill this job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I'm going to do great because I'm so prepared for this and I actually want this and I'm excited about it. But I just had to work through my initial gut reaction, which was emotional, in order to clear the way for the accurate, intuitive guidance to come through.
See this, and this is the part where I think that when you discussed earlier about we learn to distrust ourselves and we learn to not trust our feelings.
Hmm.
Because then for a lot of people, what happens is they get that feeling and they buy into it.
Hmm.
They start buying into it like, yeah, I'm probably not
Hmm.
good, like,
Hmm.
or you just don't trust yourself to be excellent
Hmm.
or that you could do something better than what you're doing.
Totally. Yeah, that's so common. And that's where sort of healing work comes in, That's where it's a process of unlearning, reparenting, working with the different parts of you, and we're working with, a professional therapist or counselor or whoever, intuitive, whoever you'd like to work with can be really
Yeah.
helpful.
I'm a big proponent of that. I have a therapist. I really enjoy the relationship and working through things. I'm just a big proponent of working on yourself
Hmm.
and being in touch with yourself. It's one of the things that actually I find crazy about fitness is that and as an industry, we spend so much time talking about, oh, let's connect with ourselves, but then we just do things to distract ourselves all the time with our
Hmm.
phone and all these things and answering text messages and emails. It's like, well, if we're going to like connect to ourselves, why don't we actually do that? Like
Hmm.
instead of putting
Hmm.
buffers and walls in front of ourselves all the
Yeah.
time. And when you see
Yeah.
that in our practices and gyms and stuff, everything's about distraction. It's not
Mhm,
about like going inside actually
mhm.
or
Yeah, I'm
that,
thinking
which,
about all the TVs in gyms now,
yeah,
like,
yeah, all
every
distracted.
angle you look, there's a
Okay.
TV.
Right. It's a TV or it's a personal device or it's something to make you
Or
not feel
both.
or both to make you. This is my point when I always tell the fitness professionals, like, we're teaching people to not feel
Mhm,
to not feel anything. It's like,
mhm,
what can I do? I'm going to have this treadmill that has ability to watch movies on it and take
mhm,
phone calls. There's TVs everywhere. There's stimulation. So I don't feel this discomfort or I lessen
mhm,
this discomfort. And I
mhm,
was saying this is not actually helping people
mhm,
as
mhm.
like you're not getting closer to
Yeah,
yourself by putting walls in front of yourself to distract yourself.
because you know what it does? It makes you the need for distraction greater and greater because
Yes.
you begin to feel afraid of that discomfort. Like, the
Yes.
discomfort of, like, running or, like, when you're lifting weights, like, that
Yeah.
discomfort that you hit, um, if you stick with it, right, you get the dopamine at the end of it. Like, you
That's
get
right.
that feel good, like, you start
Right.
to smile, and if you're present, you can associate the 2, right? You can
Yes.
say, "I was uncomfortable, I stuck with it, and it turned out, and I was okay at the end of it, and I survived it, and it felt good," right? And that's when you create, like, a really um supportive like cycle, like in that
Yes.
feedback loop
That loop.
where
Yeah.
you're going back to the gym because last time you were there, you smiled, you know?
Yeah.
Last time you were there, you got that positive association. But if we're numbing out through those experiences, the discomfort, it becomes like even more difficult, you know?
Yeah.
It just builds up, and then we lose confidence in ourselves. We don't get that dopamine, um, at the end of it in the same way,
Yep.
and we become disembodied, like, we lose that, like
Disembodied. Yes.
we lose that, like, um, empowerment, like, that
Yes.
power of, like, "I did that, like, I
You
made it
disempower
through that."
yourself. I'm telling you.
Mhm.
I've
Yep.
been talking about this for like 20 years. So,
Mhm.
like, literally, and I was like,
Mhm.
I always got pushed away about it, and now I was like, "Yeah," and I was just like, "Think about it. You're removing your conscious feeling about your body
Uh-huh.
every time you put something in between it, whether
Mhm.
it's there's obviously some value to music, there's a lot of research on that, but what happens is we went from the value of music, but then, like, then you switch your consciousness, your brain to checking messages or scrolling while you're doing something, watching a movie, you're not connected, and I think we're less intuitive because we are disembodying ourselves on a regular basis through all things we do in life.
Absolutely.
See? I know what's going on.
Put this guy on, like, the no TVs in gyms
I'm
panel.
telling you, I'm big anti technology in gyms. I like manual
Yeah.
pieces of equipment that don't have plugins and things. I don't like
Mhm.
TVs. I like it
Analog
just
gym.
analog gym. Just come in there and be uncomfortable with it not having
Mhm.
a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, and then you'll get people going back because they'll be
Yeah.
feeling so good.
Start feeling yourself for that. So I want to transition to like the medium aspect
Mhm.
of this, which I don't understand very well at all. And
Thanks for your honesty.
I like to admit that I don't know a bunch of stuff. It's important. I think it's like important to say that out loud too. Like, I just don't know.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
yeah.
I was
So
thinking the other day, that's one of the things that I really value in people. I was thinking, what do I, like, really value in
yes,
people? And it's the people who can say, "I don't know."
I mean, I really don't know. Seriously. Like, so I feel like
Well,
citing,
I'm here.
right?
I can help you with that.
I like operational definitions and things or something, but I what is a medium, or what is the
Uh-huh.
process of doing that? What's the verb of
Yeah.
that?
Yep.
And like, what are the misconceptions about it?
Okay. Yeah. Great. So let's go back and start with that definition of intuition because I like to start with that. Intuition is a really broad way of receiving information. It's energetic information. So it's non physical information that we can receive into our awareness through all and of our senses, right? Um, sight, sound, taste, touch, and like a sense of knowing. So we can receive intuitive information all those ways. Now, we can also use that way of receiving information in different ways. Just like if you were, you know, a creative person and you received inspiration, you can process that, you know, you can use it for music, you can use it for painting, you can use it for drawing, you can use it for writing a book. So intuition is the same. You know, there's lots of different ways we can use our intuition. So a few of the ways that we mentioned already is like just in your day-to-day life. And your intuition will naturally be more open when you are um, present and happy. So, like, if you know, a good example that I like to give about this is if you're like really stuck on a project, you can't find a solution, you feel like there's a problem, you can't figure it out, and then you take your dog on a walk, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, duh, that's what I need to do. It comes to you, right? Comes really just pops in. That's because you've gotten present and you've raised your vibration. So you're out moving your body and moving the energy around and it pops in. So that's using your intuition on a daily basis. What I do as a professional intuitive is I use my intuition consciously to support people in their life. So what that means is I'm able to get into a state of awareness where I can intentionally call in information. I'm not just like receiving whatever comes. I'm intentionally asking for specific information, and I can receive it. So when I'm in an intuitive session with someone, I sit down with them and I call in the information that's in their highest good. And what usually happens is I'll see their energy in my mind's eye. I can see their energy and I'll start receiving information to support them in their life. And the way that I work is I call in information that's really practical, really supportive, really simple, like tools, techniques, like really practical things that people can do to step closer towards the life they desire. So the mediumship piece comes in. That's another way that people can use intuition. And the way that that works is you're consciously calling in the communication of someone who has died.
Mm,
So a medium is someone who communicates between levels of reality. So they can communicate
mhm.
between the spirit world and the physical world. That's why it's a medium, because you're in between.
I've never heard someone say levels of reality for that. That is maybe the best way I've ever heard that explained. I
Good.
that was very profound, actually, because that actually makes more sense to me as someone who enjoys different versions of consciousness and reality, whether it's through
Mhm,
psychedelics, other things. Like
mhm,
I am very much into levels of reality. I don't think I thought about it that way. That this
mhm.
is kind of like you're calling in to first of all, the calling in took me. I was like, calling in? Like, what is that? Like, calling in. That's interesting. But I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm stuck on this levels of reality. We have to keep moving towards that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So and the cool thing about mediumship, this isn't something that I ever um thought that I would do. It's not something I ever really wanted to do, but it's something that I could do and that people really enjoy, and I love doing it. So I've just kept doing it. People started coming to me for sessions and referring people to me, and every time I do it, I'm like, I really don't understand completely how it works. I don't think that we're really meant
Mm,
to, but I love that about it. Like, I love that I don't really know exactly how it's working, but it works. And it's
yeah.
really healing and it really changes people's lives, um, and frees people.
So there's a lot going on here. Like talking about the levels of reality with people who are not alive in the physical realm versus people who are alive. How do you call that in? How does that happen? I mean, I don't know. I'm trying
Yeah.
to get some information.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good question. So, in a mediumship session, if someone comes to me specifically wanting to connect with a person, I usually won't even ask who they want to connect with. I'll just see
Yeah.
who's there. So, I make the connection with my client. And so that's sort of setting the scene as I have this client. And then I get into a state of awareness where I am present with who's joined us. And I'll make an intention. I'll say, who's here to speak with Charlotte today?
Yeah.
And I'll see who comes and I'll just start sharing with Charlotte the people that I'm seeing and the information that they're giving me. And oftentimes it I'll connect right away with the person that they're wanting to connect with.
Mm.
But if that doesn't happen, they can give me their name and I can try to make that connection a little stronger. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. But the whole I mean, I think there's a couple things we're working with here right now. We're working with the idea that life exists beyond death, right? That's a
Right.
concept in itself.
Right. Of course. Of
And
course.
then there's the idea that if that's true, then there's this potential that we can communicate with
Yeah.
between worlds, between
Yeah.
realities.
Yeah.
And so something I like to say on the topic of mediumship is that one of the most common ways I hear that people receive intuitive information is when they've lost a loved one.
Mm.
And I don't think I've ever had a conversation with someone who's lost a loved one who hasn't received a sign from that loved one.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that a lot too, actually. Yeah.
Yep. And it's so common, and it's so real and natural to have a relationship with our loved ones after they've passed.
Yeah.
And so I just like to bring that up and offer that as evidence
Mm. Yeah.
towards there being life beyond death. That this is something that is experienced by most humans on the planet
Yeah.
is a continuation
Yeah.
and receiving those signs and messages of love and support from loved ones. So what a medium does is they're able to validate those for the person.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I never struggled with life after death. That always it was always real for me.
Mm,
Always. Like
mm,
very natural. I'm very much of the mindset of that consciousness is the brain is the receiver of consciousness out from wherever it's called in, whether it's maybe God for me or for other, like whatever, the universe,
mhm,
that it's there's just too much uh feeling about it, I feel like.
mhm, mhm,
I also don't need proof either. That's not necessarily
mhm.
like I like proof, but I also don't like. I have two things in my I can have these two thoughts. I don't need the proof, but I also like proof and sort it doesn't matter
Yeah.
really. It's just I trust my feelings
I love that.
about
Yeah.
it. And although I wouldn't say that I've had that experience of someone that died and that, but then again, I've experienced it through people who are not necessarily super close to me.
Mhm,
Like I haven't had a parent pass yet or anything like that. Um, but I do think that I've had clients who are very non-spiritual or into that, and I think they become more spiritual since their parent has passed. They felt
mhm,
something. They
mhm,
felt something. There's something else out there. It's like
mhm,
and to me, it's obvious too.
mhm.
So I never get the other side. I'm like, oh, it just feels obvious. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. I love that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the mediumship. I think that society we're coming into a really in time of enlightenment. I really feel that. I
Mhm,
know it feels divisive and stuff, but I actually feel the enlightenment quite a bit
mhm,
in myself and others that people are searching. They're seeking and they're starting to believe and that there's something bigger.
mhm.
There's something deeper inside. And they
Yeah.
feel it. They feel it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just like you said, I love they just have been told to not trust it.
Mhm,
Or they've been told by I like science, but like scientists often there's just this big misnomer that scientists don't have spiritual thoughts or that they're not but actually over 50% of scientists are actually believers of God or something beyond that. It's just that it
mhm,
the narrative has totally been wrong about that. They
mhm,
push out this whole anti-spiritual thing. It's not true though,
mhm.
or that.
Yeah.
Most people
Yeah.
have a feeling. They just don't know what to do with it because it's not something that you can grab onto, like, tangible.
Mhm.
But it's
Yep.
scary. It's scary, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are starting to really feel that we're all connected. Like,
Yeah.
to feel really connect with that
Yes.
truth. I think that's where things are opening up and widening up, like, the empathy and the
Yes.
compassion for one another and yeah, there's, like, some divisiveness, but I actually think that divisiveness is being magnified right
It's
now, like,
magnified. Yes.
it's really if you really took all the humans on the planet and put them together, the divisive ones would take up a tiny little
It's that
piece of
time
it.
I'm telling you, I totally agree.
And yes,
Yeah. Like, lived
yes.
experience is different. I believe I said this to someone else. This was, a lady who does, meditation. I said, "I believe we're entering this age of spirituality, techno-spiritualist. We are not going backwards in technology. We keep racing towards the future, but we're also racing towards large spiritual awakening at the same time. So I
Mhm,
think future humans and current are becoming techno spiritualists. This
mhm.
coexistence of technology and spirituality is starting to merge together. That's the singularity to me,
Yep, yep.
not the AI human interface. It's the
Mhm.
techno spiritual interface, the levels of reality,
Yes,
inception, deeper.
yes.
That's what it is.
And even the language you use, like, the language I use in my work in a lot of, in these, like, sort of intuitive, like, wellness circles, we use the word download, like, we're downloading
That's
information,
right.
right? Or we're channeling information, right? all these like technical terms that we use to describe these experiences that we're having, which I want to say have been happening for humans since the beginning of time.
Right.
We're not discovering our intuition. We're not discovering our spirituality. We're reconnecting with it.
Yes.
But there have been healers and leaders on the planet doing this work for thousands of years.
Yeah. And
So, yeah, go
and
ahead.
people and then people who I think trusted it more in the
Mm,
past. And because they weren't distracted. It comes down they were
yeah.
less distracted. If there wasn't all this technology, people were not as distracted. They would
Mhm,
look at the sky and could wonder and could
mhm,
feel and sense. Right now, you look at the sky, you see pollution, you see
mhm,
light pollution, and you see
mhm,
huge billboards, and you see
mhm.
all this. You see this thing in your hand. You're just so distracted from the levels of reality that exist.
That's right. And actually, when you begin to connect with your intuition, when you begin to experience yourself in a deeper way, whether through meditation or, psychedelic
Yeah,
experiences or therapy or whatever choice, whatever things draw
yeah.
you, when you begin to have those experiences, they're more profound, more deep than any
Oh yeah.
that anyone can go and download. And it's called the home screen meditation.
Mm,
And this is a meditation that my guides gave to me. Other people may have had a meditation similar to it that I don't know about. So I'm not claiming that it's mine, but my guides showed it to me when I was meditating. And you go to your home screen, like your home screen on your phone,
right.
and then you can go into different places. You can take different portals and go on different explorations. So, the people listening, they can do that meditation and see just how fun and interesting you are and your inner world can be. One of the places I like to go to is a house, and the house represents my body. So when I go to that house, I observe it and I can learn information about my body through that experience. And if I go every day, the house is different every day because my
Mm,
body's different every day. And I
yeah,
learn different information and I can feel things. I can, take care of myself in a way that I wouldn't have the capacity to if I didn't have that information.
that's awesome. I love that. I think one of my favorite practices to do, like, I'm a big like downloader when it comes to like mentally and stuff. So I could call it like my thinking hour. And in order to get good ideas, I know what I have to do. I already know it.
Mm,
I
mm.
get rid of the
Okay, let us
distraction.
hear it.
Here's what I do. I get rid
Uh
of
huh.
distraction. I go outside. I'm a big gardener. I love gardening. And I go out to my garden. I sit there and I look outside and I just sit there and I just look at my garden and I look at the sky and I always get great ideas because I have
Mm,
removed all of the buffers, all of the
mhm,
distraction. My mind is now free uh,
mhm.
to let it be creative and to
That's right.
channel an idea. And that's why if you look at research, a lot of people get great ideas on planes, pre-internet on planes,
Uh-huh.
because that was a space, a sacred space in the past where you could not be distracted. So you just the
Mhm,
hum of the plane, the movement. People will always come up with great ideas on planes pre-internet
mhm,
because there was
mhm,
no distraction. And
mhm,
it's
mhm,
the idea of a deprivation tanks and stuff. I like flow therapy and all that stuff. Like
mhm,
the idea
mhm.
of freeing your mind to be creative
Yeah,
and come up
yeah.
with ideas. To
That's
me,
your
it's very simple.
intuition. That's your intuition, like, your intuition comes through then.
Yeah.
I wanna add something to that, just in case people have trouble doing that, because that can be
Yes,
hard
that's
to
true.
go from 100 to 0, right? To go
Sure.
from, like, that distraction to just sitting, and one of the best things to do to process, well, it's to move, right? So exercise,
Mhm.
especially bilateral stimulation. So walking, or even if you want to be seated, you can like hit each shoulder, like right shoulder, left shoulder, right hand, left hand, right knee. If you do that bilateral stimulation, that will help your brain. They've done studies on this. It helps your brain to um, get out of that
Yeah.
active place and sort of balance back out. So if people find it difficult to just sit, move first
Sure. Yeah.
and then sit.
Most definitely. You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting that too. I don't know if you've noticed this, Emma, but I've seen noticed more people walking their pets with their phone.
Mhm.
Now, have you seen this?
Yeah.
And I think this is a problem, in my opinion, because you're losing contact with your dog. Also,
Mm.
that special
Sad. When I see it, I
connection.
get sad for the dog.
Yeah, and something about that bothers me. Like I like
Mhm.
think like this is a good time for you and your dog to be active together. And the thing you see somebody holding the leash and they're looking, and the dog's
Mhm.
going to the bathroom, they're looking, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
this is a
Mm.
disembodied experience
Yeah.
with your
Yeah.
pet. And we know that pets have tremendous power towards our mental health and wellness and
Mhm.
connection.
Mhm.
And just like walking together, hearing each other's footsteps, the click, 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 and you
Mhm.
with your dog, I see more of this. I'm just like, there's something about this that's very unnatural, it feels like to me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple things happening there. First of all, there's the addictive technology that's being
Right. Yeah.
created that takes advantage of us, right? So if
Yes.
this is you, don't feel bad about it.
Right.
These companies are, you know, pulling out all the stops to keep you on your
Correct.
phone. They're
Yeah.
doing everything they can to do that. But the other piece is what is behind the distraction? Often it's discomfort,
That's right.
taking us back to what we were talking about. There's some discomfort, there's some emotion, there's some unsettled feeling. And if we don't feel like we can be with that, we are always going to protect ourselves by
Yeah.
disembodying, by taking ourselves away from it. So, learning those tools to be present with uncomfortable feelings is the bottom line for all of that. Because then, before we reach for our phone, we can say, "Wait a second. What am I trying to get?" And this is what I've started asking myself before I click on the Instagram logo. What do I want? And I'll say, I want this feeling. It feels really good. This is what the feeling feels like. This is what I want. This is why I'm going to click on that. And I can ask myself, like, do I need that right now? Is there another way I can get that? What do
Yeah.
I need? And we can have this like critical conversation with ourselves, like constructive conversation with ourselves to really uncover our subconscious motivations.
Yeah. I tell you what, I never know how these uh conversations are gonna go. And I never think about like it should go a certain way or another. I always just trust myself and going into it. And this was like 8 billion times better than I thought it was gonna be. I'm telling you. Like I always think it's gonna like I'm very optimistic. I think, oh, it's gonna be good, trust myself
Yeah.
as an interviewer. I think we're gonna be good. And I was like, man, I learned a lot. I learned a lot in
I
this.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. I learned a
Very
lot
diff-
too.
Oh, good. that's, that's not usually the part I impart with people on this, but that's pretty
Well
cool to
well,
hear.
you asked such great questions. I'm
Yeah.
so glad that, we could connect and we can,
Yes.
share. And you know what? I'm so curious what your listeners think about all of
Yeah.
these things we've talked about too. So,
Yeah.
um,
It's mainly like a fitness and wellness audience, but it's to me, wellness is all these things. It's just trying to provide like other ways of knowing because clearly there's people who will go, oh, there goes Darian again, going into these weird topics, and all this stuff. But I don't think it's weird. I just think it's like, why aren't we talking about
yeah, but meanwhile, they tune in,
it?
you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I feel like like this is like, and it's also seemed like it's ripe for the timing for something like this. Like, and I'm just like drawn to stuff that's different. Like I have a guy coming on who has this book. It's called In Defense of Doping. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And it's like,
Mm,
what is he
mhm,
for doping? And it's not really that, but like his
mhm,
take on performance enhancement drugs and things that are deemed to be performance enhanced, but actually aren't, and
mm,
changing the narrative. Like, why is this a performance enhancing drug, but it doesn't actually enhance your
mhm.
performance? Why
Yep.
don't but what's the stigma behind things? Like, I'm interested in that. Like,
Yeah.
not like how to get better at your fitness levels. Like, all right, that's common for me. Like, I want to
Mhm.
reach outside the box
I
of
love that.
what's the normal stuff, you know?
Well, I hope we did that for your listeners
I think
today.
so. No, we definitely did it. It was great. You were great. Emma, please tell everyone how they can connect with you a bit more.
Yes. Yes. So, my website is emma-andrews.com, and I'm on Instagram at Emma REWS. If you'd like to book a session with me, I do my intuitive sessions over the phone and also in person in Charlottesville, Virginia. And you can do that on my website. And my intuition development course, the intuitive method, I teach that once a year. If you'd like to explore your intuition more with me, you can go to my events page. You can get on my wait list for the intuitive method and just check out other events and workshops and things that I have coming up this year. I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling, so I may be coming to your neck of the woods.
That's fantastic. Charlottesville, Virginia. I've been there many times because I went to James Madison University.
Oh, did
It's
you?
very close to UVA,
Yeah.
and I ran there many times, and very familiar with that part of.
Were you a runner? Is that your
I
sport?
was a runner. I was a track and field athlete. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow, for
Been the sort of
JMU. Purple, golden purple, right?
gold and purple. Yeah, right up the road, not that far away. Honestly, very
No,
close.
no.
You
No,
know,
it's
Harrisonburg, Virginia. You know,
yeah, yeah, just down the road.
just down the road. Very fond memories of. I love Virginia. I lived there many times, so it's great that you're there. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it too. I live on a farm. I've got goats and chickens and bunny and geese.
Wow, wow. My wife would
So,
be very
I love
envious.
it.
What? That's awesome. Well, you're a lovely person, Emma. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Darian. Thank you for having me.